for collateral damage. Zombies have taken over our once humanized spaces. Yes, the zombies of our time are indeed the zombies of zealotry. Before the word smash is uttered, they are already smashing, and with clerical blessing. Before the word burn is mumbled, they have emptied their candles, kerosene, and lit their matches. On the word go, they've already far gone and are incapable of hearing stop. And they go on and on, threatened by the cited arsonists, we, the rest of us are, who declared, in effect, we've only just begun. You ain't seen nothing yet. This pronouncement just a month ago. Again, no one dares suggest that certain cultural practices are not decidedly pernicious, detrimental to human health and progress, both as individuals and as a people. Such practices do exist. Indeed, it was one, the notorious cult called Okija, that sets this specific three-part discourse going, beginning 10 years ago, and it is that again which periodically reignites it. Maybe I should call this present encounter part 3 of the Okija trilogy, since my choice of subject has indeed been provoked by the most recent month-old call to arms against a people's cultural heritage. A call that follows that lazy habit of the sweeping condemnation of what its procurators had not taken the trouble to study. Yes, we must learn to discriminate, and I stress this yet again. We must also watch out for the casuists, those who defend the indefensible under one rubric or the other, one of the most cynical being a recourse to the doctrine of cultural relativism. Now, what exactly is cultural relativism as preached? Exaggerated, but only slightly, it proposes a blanket endorsement of what exists for no other reason that it once existed, still exists, and has a right to exist eternally once its cultural origination is attested. The defenders of the Okija necropolis, for instance, claimed validation for their practices under the banner of their cultural relativism. And you can imagine my chagrin to find that through careless listening and or misleading relativism, misleading reportage, some commentators actually classed me among the defenders of a cult whose primary feature was environmental pollution through permanent exposure of members' corpses to the open air. Their deceased members, having enjoyed material wealth in their lifetime through cult membership, were merely fulfilling their claim, their pledge to the Okija deity by leaving the rotten corpses among the living, exposed among the living. No, I'm afraid that in these matters, I am no follower of the doctrine of relativism, not to be confused by the way with that peculiar Nigerian invention known as the doctrine of necessity. Also, not to be confused with cultural diversity, a totally different kettle of fish with which it is often cynically conflated. Again, by the way, whatever became of the Okija revelations, was the membership registry ever published as promised? Of course not. Too many high-placed, important so-called Christians and Muslims were involved in the membership, from what we hear. So let's leave the dead alone and return to the living. With cultural relativism, we find ourselves on largely debating grounds, and thus less lethal. Although, had you been present at a session of the International Women's Forum in 1982, I think it was in Helsinki, one of whose sessions I monitored at a safe distance, I later congratulated myself in hindsight, you would have thought that the delegations, mostly representative of governments, were about to commence World War III, right there and then. It was that memorable edition of this forum that saw for the first time a preponderance of so-called third world participants. It was also there that the term cultural relativism first gained prominence on the normal international forum as opposed to within the tomes of philosophy. The main crime of cultural relativism, of course, is that it leaves little or no room for ethical consideration, since in its logical progression, every conduct or practice must be viewed through the originating cultural parameters of its perpetrators. That is the bedrock monologue that ends all discourse. Culture itself is not summoned to the tribunal of humanity for ethical adjudication from within, and is not subject to commentary from without. If it is the practice to abandon twins in the evil bush, to stone children to death on suspicion of being carriers of witchcraft spores, or burying a woman up to her neck and using her head as target practice with stones until reduced to pulp for the crime of, or even suspicion of adultery, all that remains just as valid as the cultural variation of that lust, still in practice in other parts